All right. Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the delay. Thank you. So, my name is Jeremy Wernick. I'm with Configure One. We're an enterprise CPQ company. We're based out of Chicago, although we have operations in Europe. Our European operations are in London. And today, what I'm here to do is to talk about how we use Verge3D. So I want to walk you through an example using a real ERP system and kind of go from end to end. Start within an ERP system, launch into Configure One, launch into Verge3D, and get it all back. See what the whole full life cycle of something like this might look like. So just a little bit about me and Configure One. So Configure One's been around for 19 years. I've been working with Configure One for 14 years. So, and along the ways, I've also worked for some of the major CAD companies out there. So I'm a little intimidated by some of you in the audience being such great Blender users, and I've seen your work on the forums. My work's far more industrial. I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm a CAD guy. So yeah, that's what my that's what my work looks like. Okay. Anyway, so my agenda for my portion today is just talking about some of these enterprise. What do you have to think about when you're thinking about enterprise CPQ and visualization together? Just some of those requirements, because these projects can get really big. Then I'll actually go into a real life demonstration of this. And then I'll kind of get into the nuts and bolts of how we have integrated Configure One and Verge3D. What is the sort of back-end mechanism we have for moving that state, that session state, from the CPQ engine into Verge? And then after that, Q&A from you all. So thank you. So in no particular order, just some of the things that Configure One has had to solve over the years for enterprise CPQ. Yuri mentioned it, pricing. So pricing can get extremely complex, especially with a highly configurable product. It's not just features and options, but there might be agreements in place with certain vendors, so there's different price structures, different sets of price rules. And then if you're talking about manufacturing, we're talking about bills of materials. So what is it? What are the components? What are the items that are going to be put together? So that might yet be a separate set of rules. Manufacturing instructions, sometimes called routings or work instructions, yet another set of rules which might have to be in there. And then multilingual, multi-currency. So those all kind of layer complexity onto a project. So at Configure One, we actually have one application. It's the same. The name of our application is the same as our company. It's called Configure One, and it's standard software that our customers can implement themselves. Like Verge3D customers can implement their own scenes, with puzzles, just kind of pointing and clicks. Our customers can actually implement rules for pricing and bills of materials and work instructions through a point-and-click interface. So, but now we need to be able to communicate. We need to have visualization. Let's just put it in the most broadest terms. So we've been doing visualization for a long time, actually since day one of the company. So my background, again, like I said, I was a CAD guy. So we used to, and we still do this, we automate CAD engines. So we will run Creo, and we'll run SolidWorks, and we'll run Inventor. And that's great when you need a blueprint out of the system. But that can take a while, and that's heavy. But these days, people aren't willing to wait for that. People want to see that image instantly on the screen. They want to see the impact of the changes they're going to make now. They don't want to wait 5 minutes or whatever it takes to get that. The other thing to keep in mind is sessions. This will be kind of my talk here is session state. How do you save and restore state? How do you get back to that configuration? Whether you're editing whether it's someone on an e-commerce site, revisiting an item in a shopping cart, or in our case, it's you're re-editing a configuration in the system. Okay. All right, demonstration. So one moment here. Okay, so I could actually do this from any number of different enterprise ERP systems. I happen to be doing this from NetSuite today. It's very popular with our customers. It's a modern platform. It has modern APIs for integration. And the integration I'm about to show you is actually what we call a standard integration. It means that this is an integration that is maintained by Configure1. It has to go through quality checks and standards by NetSuite, so NetSuite customers really can get up on this integration in very short order. It's not something we custom build for our customers. But that being said, we Configure1 as a company, we try to play well with all the vendors out there. SAP, JD Edwards, Oracle ERP. We have customers that do it all. And there's different ways you can use this. So what I'm going to do today is called an opportunity. So this is slightly more of a CRM, customer relationship management example, but I'm going to create a new opportunity. So an opportunity is something that a salesperson might do to track a particular sales opportunity. This is not my software. This is NetSuite right now. One moment. Okay. And we will assign a prospect, a company to this. So the idea here is we're going to create an opportunity. We're going to put a Configure1 configuration or quote within there. And then we're going to actually, within that quote, we're going to be able to use visualization. Just one moment here. Okay. So the idea here is we have this area. It's quotes, and it's a bit of an eye chart. Let me make this a bit smaller. The other direction. Maybe you can see that a little better. And what we want to do is we want to add a quote. So we can actually search for existing quotes, but I'll add a new quote here. And now Configure1's asking me how do I want to add a configuration, and I'll say I want to create a new configuration, and I'll do this. This is actually going to be a what I would call, an American would call, a freight truck. So this is actually very typical of our customers. Our customers make many of our customers make very industrial things, and so some of our customers build these things. They're called freight truck bodies. They buy the chassis and they put these bodies on the back. So let's just run through this. This is the configuration interface. Our customers can set this up themselves. My manufacturer, I can see the Durastar chassis. If I pick Ford, I can see the Ford chassis. But let's go with a Durastar. Now you can see down here at the bottom that image is changing. Now, of course, that's not Verge3D. That's yet a different visualization technique that we've actually developed in-house. It's also an HTML5 solution, but it's based on SVG, not WebGL. And the nice thing about that is it changes in real time. You can pan, you can zoom, you can see details. Now that used to be good enough, but it's not anymore. So let's let's change this just one more thing. I'm going to make this wheelbase a bit longer. So let's move that axle back. And right now we'll leave it as single axle. Continue on. And let's take a look at the truck in 3D, or at least the truck body in 3D here. So here's the same freight truck body. And what's going on here is we have the Verge3D scene, but then we also have the configurator above and below. And we need to be able to communicate back and forth between these two things. So we call these inputs. Well, it doesn't matter if it's a palette or a pull down or a radio button, they're all inputs. But we need to send the state of that as well as other information to update the scene. So let's do some simple things like, we can change the color of the truck. We'll make it black or make it blue. And of course, what am I doing there? We're using the puzzles to drive those materials and changing the materials. But let's do something else. So right now, on the back of the vehicle, we have this rolling shutter, which is nice because I can actually show you what it looks like when it moves. So it would just go full screen, and you can use Verge3D animations to show how it opens and operates, or I can close that. And you can watch that. There's actually another more elaborate one here. Let's go with what we call a 3-panel door. So there's actually 3 panels in the back of that truck, another very common example. And let's run through that animation. You can watch the gates all open in the proper sequence. Okay. We can close it up again. And personally, the reason I like it and my team likes using Verge with Blender is kind of the fidelity we can get with these images. Terrific materials. Of course, the Soft 8 Soft team added anti-aliasing recently, so we're running that here as well. So it really looks terrific. So let's just kind of pan and zoom around. Even this is going to be an American thing, but the trucks, the lorries, there's a rule that you actually have to have striping on the sides of it. So being able to incorporate even, what that's going to look like. So here's our configure one striping. The ability to use, PBR or physically based materials. So that's what we're using for the tires there. I will. Even things like reflections and glass in the reflectors. So our customers do appreciate that sort of thing. Okay. Now, about session state. Let's say I changed my mind. My customer comes back to me and says, Jeremy, we need a tandem axle. We need 2 axles on that truck. It's gonna be heavy. So I'm going back to the first page of the configurator, and I'm going to say I want a tandem axle on that. And of course, in 2 dimensions here, in this, I'm showing it there. But I also want that to be represented in the 3-dimensional scene state. So notice it comes back now, and we have 2 axles there. And we can see all the details. Oops. Zoom out a little bit. And I'll explain how that scene initialization happens. So we want, when you come back to the 3D scene, we want it to properly represent the state of the configuration. All right. Yeah, and it's the small things that customers sometimes like, So even their warning stickers and things like this, it's surprising, but it does mean a lot. Okay. This looks good, and I'll continue on a little bit. I'm not going to take you through a full CPQ demonstration this morning, but if anyone wants to talk to me afterwards, we can talk a little more about this. We'll point out as I'm going along, we're actually building up a bill of materials. So within Configure 1, there are rules for bill of material generation. That's actually all happening on server side. Pricing is being generated server side. Costs are being generated server side. Let's see. I'll just do one more configurator type rule just for completeness here. Very often what you have in a configurator is the idea that you need to find something from a list. So these things are walk ramps. They're just aluminum planks that go on the back of these vehicles. And I'll say right now, I buy these from a supplier, and I have about 50 of those in the list. I'll say, hey, I want to see everything between 10 feet long and 11 feet long, and attaches with a hook and is 29 inches wide. So now we can filter that down just to one. So in CPQ configurators, there's many different types of rules you need to be able to support, and we pride ourselves in having a very robust rules engine behind that. Now these configurators can get very long. We have customers that might have 1,000 questions in their configurator. We can actually embed the 3D scenes at multiple stages within the configurator, maybe focusing on different areas of the vehicle. Maybe you want a full vehicle preview, maybe just something for the elevator or the lift gate on the back. But for today, what I'm going to do is just going to skip to the end. I'm actually bypassing, I don't know, maybe 50 more questions. But what we've done is the configurator can actually calculate all the defaults and generate the price and the bill of materials. This looks good, so let's finish this up. And we're building results. This is actually the point at which we would have traditionally reached out to a three-dimensional CAD system like, again, Creo or Inventor or SolidWorks, and we can still do that. That's important. But at this point, it would have taken 2 or 3 minutes. But remember, we've already shown that 3D asset, that 3D scene to the user. So our results would be things like a costed bill of material. Again, reason I mentioned costed is this is typically used by maybe a sales rep for the manufacturer. Of course, we can show price if we're just showing this to an end user. We have that image that we generated in Configure One's 2D system. And let's add that to our quote. So now we have our quote interface, and this is a line item on our quote. We have one line item here and has a price. Right now it's about just short of $24,000 for that body. Now, I mentioned internationalization, so my system is very US-centric here, my demonstration system. But if I wanted to, I could switch this to euros and show that in euros. So consider things like foreign exchange tables or FX tables. You can even have multiple price lists. And I'll go back to US dollars. And where this really gets complicated, often it's someone in one country selling something to someone else in a different country. So you actually may want to target a different language. So you can do that as well. Okay, I'll stick with US English here, and I'll finish this up. There's just a couple more questions. These are called quote inputs, and I will add, these are questions that kind of exist at not the configuration level, but the quote level. I'm going to say I want a custom greeting. I'll say, hi, Yuri. We appreciate the opportunity you've given us, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to say the anticipated close date will be the end of this month, so the 31st of May. And my probability on the sale, I'm a very confident salesperson. I'll say it's very high probability, and I will build this. Okay, let's take a look at that. So we've generated a document. Here it is. And so we have a document generation engine hooked into this. It'll generate our documents. These could be quote documents or configuration documents. So here's my kind of greeting page. It says, hi, Yuri. We appreciate the opportunity. That came in there. And notice you don't have to edit a document in a text editor or Word. It's all done in the configurator. We can show the price, maybe terms and conditions. If you wanted to, you can show some bill of material information there. But what I want to do is I want to get back into NetSuite. So now I'm back in the ERP system, and notice that we actually have that opportunity attached to our opportunity, that quote attached to our opportunity within the ERP system within NetSuite. So if I just update this a little bit. There we go. You can now see that the expected close date actually is now set to the end of this month, the 31st. and the probability has been updated as well. So there's information that flows from Configure One into NetSuite. So those are some of the data points. The other data points I'll point out here are we actually push the documents over, and these could actually include, I apologize, I don't have an example of this, but we can, because of the screenshotting capability within Verge3D, we'll actually automatically take screenshots and embed those in documents as well, and those can be sent up to the ERP system as a configuration document or a quote document. And if I go here to, you can see that there is a quote within the ERP system. So this is a NetSuite quote entity. I think I lost my Wi-Fi connection there. Okay. That's all right. Anyway, it's not important. The point was actually the bill of material and the quote and that all end up in NetSuite automatically as part of the standard integration. What I will do now, just so I don't go too long here, is just talk a little bit about there we go. The sequence of how we've done this. So so as Yuri said, we were probably one of the first, or maybe I guess I found out we were the first customer, first enterprise customer. So we built some of our integration before there were kind of integration puzzles, but this is our methodology. So the idea here is I have a CPQ tool, this would be Configure One, and I have Verge3D. And in my flow, time goes down this direction. So the idea here is on the beginning, we begin by the CPQ tool will boot up its page. It'll load it, whatever CPQ content it is, the configurator questions, that sort of thing. In there, of course, we will embed an iframe. Now, when I say we will embed it, it's actually all automatic. We have this, we have an integration built with Verge3D. So on the back for updating a scene, except, of course, the page is already running. We listen for changes on the CPQ page. We retrieve that data. We send it the message as a JSON, and we implement that with puzzles. So how does this work? So there is this. Of course, this is going to vary. Everyone can do this in a different way, but the way we did it is there's a function that we wrote, and it's essentially we call it Parsed Selections. And the reason this exists is a couple things. We need to do some sanitization and bounds checking of input values coming from the external system. So often you're going to have two different teams. You're going to have a CPQ team and a visualization team. What if they didn't agree on things? What if maybe there has to be a number conversion format or something? This allows you to do a bit of kind of middleware there, being able to fill in holes in the data, or just making sure there's nothing in there that's going to kind of crash your puzzles. Good thing to do. And the other thing is fill in missing data. So again, a CPQ engine could have thousands of questions. Maybe some of them haven't been answered yet. So maybe you want some safe defaults, or fixing mismatches in key names. Again, many hands. It would be great if all teams always work together. Maybe in one side they called it a key certain value, and another team called it by a different name. This is your opportunity to do that. Now I use JavaScript for this because I get a lot of flexibility. And this also allows me to essentially create an external API that the two systems can communicate with. And then what I do is I parse that message. So what I do, because I have a CPU engine, I try to keep my logic, the puzzle logic, as simple as possible. And my puzzles for update scene are, I already have that JSON message that I know is good. I've bounds checked everything. I've checked it for validity. And I run it through puzzles. In this case, and maybe you can't see this, but I have functions like set paint, set door visibility, set axle visibility. So very simple, well-named functions makes it easy for the next team to come in and verify it. So my personal style of using puzzles is break puzzles into small functions, organize functions by category with tabs. That was a great, thank you for adding tabs. That was great. And then pass. Personally, I actually pass everything. I try to, when I use functions, I try to pass explicitly rather than treating everything as globals. It just, again, for my own sanity, makes the code a lot more readable. All right. So thank you. Hopefully we have a minute or two here. Maybe 1 minute. Okay. Thank you.